What's going down, everybody, and welcome back to another CAD Pop Patreon Decktech. Today, Trostani, Selesnya's voice. Let's hit it right now. Alright, we are back. This week's CAD Pop Patreon Decktech is courtesy of Jesse Schneiderwind, and it's a classic. This is a Trostani Selesnya's voice deck. We're doing tokens, we're doing big creatures, we're doing some beatdown, we're doing some life gain. Cornerstone of the format. Want your deck featured? Head on over to patreon.com/cadpopcast. Find the tier that's right for you. Pledge your support. It helps the channel grow. Goes a long way to keeping the lights on, getting the videos out, getting the podcast twice a week, twice every other week, and I do sincerely appreciate it. Don't forget you can head on over to fusiongamingonline.com. They're your source for all of your CAD Pop deck tech needs. You can go there, new Commander, Legends, sealed product and singles. It's all available there. If you pick anything up, just let them know at checkout that Ryan from Commander at Populum sent you. It helps the show out a ton, and I do like working with those guys. So if you don't want to support on Patreon, but you're gonna buy cards anyways, head over there, fusiongamingonline.com. So, Trostani, Selesnya's voice, a 2/5 Dryad for white, green, originally from Return to Ravnica. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So it is a soul sister kind of card, but also green, white, 1 tap. Populate. And what that means is put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token that we control. So tokens, we're going to want big tokens, not those little piddly ones, those throwaway ones, and we're going to want a swing. Now, don't forget, the CAD Pop Patreon deck techs are for 3 groups of people. The people that are just getting into the format, new people, first decks, new to Magic. Maybe we're going to learn how to play. We're going to learn some of the foundations, the cornerstones, the staples. I think that this deck is going to cater to those people today because this is kind of the first Populate deck, the first life gain deck that we've featured on the channel, and like I said, it is a cornerstone or a foundational kind of deck for the format. The next group of people is the intermediate players, the people branching out of their comfort zone, maybe looking to build their second deck, something different, something new, something maybe even unique that they've never seen before. The final group of people that we try to cater to on the CAD Pop deck techs is the long-time nostalgic players, the people building around a pet card, or somebody that's otherwise enfranchised. And Jesse tells me in his write-up in his email about the deck is that this is the first deck that he kind of built when him and his friends got back into the format and started swinging jank $50 piles of 100 at each other. So this deck does have a special meaning to him, and I think that it is going to cater to the longtime player, the nostalgic player, the person that's looking to get some feels, and that is evidenced again by the couple altars that he's splurged on for little gifts to himself, something just to make his command zone look unique, look special, remind him of how much he loves the deck. So let's get into it. We've got a bunch of the usual stuff that we've got to ram through, get through so we can crack into the nuts and bolts and the engine of the deck. So let's get that out of the way quickly and then we'll get to the goods. First, we've got 10 ramp pieces. We've got an Arcane Signet, a Sol Ring, Talisman of Unity, that's the Selesnya one, Growing Rites of Itlamok, that's going to flip over into Itlamok Cradle of Vitality or whatever, the Gaia's Cradle. And for spells, we've got Cultivate, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, Secure Tribe Elder, and Wood Elves. Those are going to give us land onto the battlefield. So 10 things there. I think it's great. Classic Selesnya mana package. The average CMC of this deck is 3.5, right about what we're going to see for a normal casual commander deck, so I don't think that there's anything wrong running 10 ramp spells. Next up, we've got our draw spells, Elemental Bond, Garruk's Pack Leader, Garruk's Uprising. Those are going to draw us cards when creatures enter the battlefield. Then we've got one-shot effects like Greater Good, Harmonize, Momentous Fall, Rishkar's Expertise. Those are all going to one-shot draw us a huge mitt full of cards. And then we've got Sylvan Library, one of the most expensive cards in the deck at $60, is going to give us cards turn over turn should we want to pay life to keep extra cards in our hand. And usually we do, especially if they're going to be huge token producers or win con type cards that we need to have to seal the game. We've got a 2-card Tutors section, Green Sun Zenith and Tooth and Nail, Both prolific cards, both foundational cards for the format. Tooth and Nail used to be the boogeyman where you just tutor for your Kiki-Jiki Zealous Conscripts or whatever it is to win the game. We might see that kind of thing here more often than not now. Tooth and Nail is going to find us two things that are going to exemplify our strategy to the best of our deck's ability without comboing, because lots of playgroups aren't really into combo these days. Protection and removal, we see 13 more cards there. Austere Command, Winds of Abandon, those are our sweepers, and then we've got Beast Within, Generous Gift, Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshare, Sundering Growth, Reclamation Sage. Those are our removal spells or our spot removal spells. Our protection things come by way of giving our creatures or our permanents indestructible or hexproof. We've got Dauntless Escort. That's an indestructible. Heroic Intervention, indestructible. Rootbound Defenses, indestructible. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, is a creature. She gives our other creatures and planeswalkers hexproof, and then Lightning Greaves for the Shroud, of course. Utility and support section, this is where we start to see some of the life gains, some of the token support, some of the things that are going to help the deck do what the deck is going to do. They're going to support the win con, if you will. We've got Archangel of Thune. That's a 5-drop, 3/4 flying lifelink. Whenever we gain life, put a +1 counter on each creature we control. So we're going to have many instances of life gain per turn. Every time we have an instance of life gain, not how many life we gain, but every time we have an instance of life gain, we're going to put a +1 counter on creatures we control. So that's a powerful card. We're going to gain life a lot of times, for example, with Serra Ascendant, a 1/1 lifelink for white. As long as we have 30 or more life, though, it gets +5/+5. So it's a 6/6 for 1 if we drop it on turn 1. And we can just start crashing in every turn, gaining 6, gaining 6, gaining 6. Very powerful card. Lightning Rod, though, if you play it early. Other support cards include Cathar's Crusade. It's going to give creatures we control +1/+1 counter every time another creature enters the battlefield. So every time we have a token come in, it's going to give +1/+1 counters to all of our team, all of our team, all of our team every time we have something new come in. We've got Cull the Coppercoats. This is a 3-drop instant. Choose any number of target opponents. You create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control, and we can pay white 1 every time we choose more than one opponent. So we can start to just, instead of 3, we pay 5, and then 7, then 9, and we can get creatures tokens equal to our opponent's creatures. Great for blocking if somebody's alpha striking in, for example, and if we flash that in when our opponents are alpha striking and we're blocking and we have that Cathar's Crusade, let's say they're alpha striking in with five creatures, call the Coppercoats, we're going to have our 5/1/1s enter the battlefield. They're all going to give each other +5/+5 from Cathar's Crusade. So they're all going to be 6/6s. So just nice little support things that are going to keep us alive and do what the deck is already doing. We've got an Elder Gargaroth. That creature just does everything. It's a 6/6 vigilance, reach, trample for 5. When it attacks or blocks, you create a beast, you gain 3 life, or you draw a card. That card is ridiculously, hyper efficiently powerful. Best card in Standard right now, I think. And just gravy if you want to draw a card, gain life, or put a 3/3 beast into play. All things that the deck wants to do. Eternal Witness and Balaged Recovery are going to get things back from our graveyard, as is Seasons Past. And shout out to Balaged Recovery being a dual-faced modal card. Turn Timber Symbiosis, same thing. It's going to let us look at the top 7 cards of our library and put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If it has a converted mana cost of 3 or less, it gets an additional +3/+3 on it. So again, it's going to get us a card. It's going to get us a bunch of +1 counters on it. So we're seeing a little bit of a sub-theme of +1s there. And that is a modal double-faced card. Finally, with all these ETB things that we're kind of talking about, and with the Wood Elves and a couple other cards we're going to see, we've got a Panharmonicon that's got to double our Enter the Battlefield abilities, and then a Garruk's Pack Leader. I think probably just because it gives us the ability to put a 3/3 beast onto the battlefield to protect Garruk, but it does untap 2 lands, so in a pinch we can kind of use this to gain mana back. Or as a pseudo ramp spell, if we can get him all the way up to his ultimate, which is only -4, he can overrun, and in a token deck, that is very powerful. So moving on to the token category. Remember, not like our last token deck where we featured Slimefoot and it was about getting as many tokens as possible, or about giving Slimefoot Infect and then having him deal damage every time tokens died. That's not what we're doing. This time we're doing big creature tokens. So get this, Advent of the Worm. This is an instant for white, green, green 1. create a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample. So we're paying 4, we're spending a card. Remember, it's at instant speed, so if somebody's attacking in with a 4/4, we flash this in, we get a worm, and it's a token, and we only spend 4 mana on it. So because that's a token, Trostani allows us to populate that. So if we go end of turn, flash in, get a worm, and then before the end of the turn again, we're like, populate for 3 mana on Trostani, we get another 5/5. All of a sudden, we're untapping with 10 power. And we left all that mana up because Advent of the Worm is an instant. We left all that mana up for all of our interaction, all of our protection type stuff. Good little include. That's the kind of thing that we're going to try and exemplify with the deck. Next up, Angelic Accord, an enchantment for white 3 at the beginning of each end step. If you gain 4 more life this turn, which we probably could, you get a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Now remember, when a creature enters the battlefield with Trostani, let's say that Advent of Worm, it's going to gain life equal to its toughness. So we would gain 5, and at the beginning of each end step, if we gained 4, and we would have with that Advent of the Worm, we get another creature. And Trostani's going to see that again and gain us 4 more. So that's only going to trigger once per turn, but it is going to trigger probably every turn if we've played our cards right. Anointed Procession, that's going to give us double tokens, and I'll cover it now. We do have a doubling season in here, which is going to give us double tokens, double loyalty counters on our planeswalkers, double everything, right? And since while we're on it, we do have a Parallel Lives as well, which is the green Anointed Procession. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many. Not +1, 2 times that many. Okay, so we've got those 3 token powerhouse cards, so remember that. Armada Worm is next. This is white, green, 2, 5/5 worm. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample. Just like Advent of the Worm, but this one is a creature with trample. Essentially, you're getting 2 worms for 1 card and sort of for the price of 1.5 worms. So you are getting a discount, and you are only spending 1 card to get 2 worms. Great include. Next up is Bramble Sovereign. This is a little bit of an underplayed one because it came from Battle Bond. This is a 4/4 Dryad, green 2. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay green 1. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token copy of that creature. This is a great way to make a token of our Archangel of Thune. This is a great way to make a token of our Wood Elves. And then we can search for 2, and then our Wood Elves is going to put like 2 counters with Cathar's Crusade, for example. This is going to be really good. All of a sudden, our Wood Elves turns into a pump spell, and it replaces itself on mana after a turn instead of after 3 turns because we've got 2 of them. That's a good one. And for political reasons, you could give somebody a copy of their own thing. Maybe the player that's behind, you're helping them get ahead on mana if they cast their own Wood Elves or their own Secure Tribe Elder, for example. Or if it's something they wanted to donate or something that they didn't want 2 of because it maybe loses them life, for example, you can give them 2 of that thing. Pretty cool. Next up is Crested Sunmare, a 5/5 horse for white 3. Other horses you control have indestructible, and at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you create a 5/5 white horse creature token. So we're seeing an instance of another kind of horse. We've seen beasts, we've seen worms, we've seen soldiers, now we're seeing horses. My suggestion to the new player, the person who's building this kind of deck for the first time, have the tokens that represent these things, or have some ability to represent these tokens very clearly, not just with like number of dice sitting on your battlefield. Get a stack of disposable post-its and write what they are. Have the token. Get some infinity tokens that you can erase, right? I've even seen like penny sleeves and Sharpie on top of just clear white card, and then you can just take the penny sleeve off and throw it away or whatever. I don't recommend that one because it's like not the greatest just to throw plastic in the garbage, but infinity tokens, they make tokens for worms and horses and soldiers, and you just go out to your LGS and get them or order some, and they are cheap. So make sure that you can represent all of the tokens in your deck appropriately. Next up, another modal double-faced card. This one with tokens, though. This is Ameria's Call. White 4 sorcery. Create 2 4/4 white angel warrior creature tokens with flying. Non-angel creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of your next turn. So powerful, but at 7. We do get 8 power for 7. That's great. We do have the option to play it as a land untapped for 3 life if we want. So opener, it's still fine, especially if we've got other token producers or doubling doubling season or something that we're trying to power out. Perfectly serviceable in this deck, even though the mythic ones didn't all get rave reviews. Another token maker, another angel one. And this one doesn't give you angel warriors, just regular angels. This is Luminarch Ascension. So again, just make sure you can differentiate the different tokens, the different angels, the different beasts, what have you, to make sure, right? At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on it, and when it has 4 or more quest counters on it, you can pay white 1 and get a 4/4 white flying angel creature token onto the battlefield. This card on turn 2 is a powerhouse because probably a round of the table till your turn 3, it's not going to be online, but another round of the table, it probably is, because not everybody's got attackers at that point in the game. And if we've dropped maybe like a Wood Elves to block or secure Tribe Elder, but we got more land drops so we can use it to block to get this online, we're going to make angels very early. And when we put counters on this, like Ascension counters on this with doubling season, it's going to go twice as fast. And if we have that same doubling season to make it a token for 2 mana, now we're making 8 power for 2 mana. Instead of 1, we're getting 2, right? 2 white flying angels instead of 1 with doubling season. So very powerful. Lightning Rod Ascension, it's been called in the past. Another token maker in Phyrexian Processor. When it enters the battlefield, pay any amount of life, and we're going to have lots of it. Remember, we're gaining life almost every turn. Multiple instances of life gain, if you will. You can pay 4, tap it, put a minion token onto the battlefield, power and toughness each equal to the amount of life that we played when Phyrexian Processor entered the battlefield. Powerful card in the right circumstances, and I think that this deck can generate those circumstances with ease. Resplendent Angel. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel, flying and vigilance. That's great. And you can pay 6 until end of turn. Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink until end of turn. I don't know if I care about that ability as much as the first one, because we're going to be gaining life when stuff ETBs, and we're going to put angels, and we're going to gain more life with Trostani, so that's great. Risk the Redeemed, that creates a green and white elf warrior creature token for 3 mana. This is turn 1 that you can cast him because he's just a Selesnya hybrid, and you can pay 4 and Selesnya hybrid. For each creature token you control, create a copy of that creature. And remember, when all those creatures enter with Trostani, we can populate them again. We can gain life from them, equal to their toughness, that is. Speaker of the Heavens is next. Another 1-drop. We've got a 1/1 for white, vigilance, lifelink. You can tap to create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying, but you can only activate this ability if you have 7 or more life total than your starting life total, and only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you have to be above 47 life to actually activate that ability, but it does have lifelink, so you can get your chip-ins every once in a while. You can give him indestructible and block and gain another life. So there is a use for that because, again, I think that we are going to be well and above over 47 very often. Final one in the token section, we've got a Felidar Retreat, another new Zendikar Rising one. This is an enchantment for white 3 landfall. Land enters the battlefield. You create a 2/2 white cat creature beast token. That's important. Or put a +1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. So another little mini Cathar's Crusade upon landfall, and you're giving vigilance. So they're getting bigger, you can attack with them, and then you can still block with them. And if they have lifelink, you're going to gain so much more life, and then you can tap your Speaker of the Heavens, and you can keep Trostani open. She's going to get big. She blocks for days because she's just going to get +1/+1/+1/+1. I bet you it's not uncommon for Trostani in this deck to have 10+ toughness. And I bet you it's not uncommon for every round of the table to gain anywhere between 8 to 10 life because of lifelink and other life gain type effects with tokens entering the battlefield. If you're going to combat this deck, I bet you a good way to do it would be to keep the life gain cards off the table and keep Trostani off the table. And I know that's not shattering news to anybody who plays Commander to keep the Commander off the table, but this deck does seem like it's got a bunch of great value stuff on card draw, but it does rely on the Commander quite heavily for that life gain component. So just keep that in mind. Finally, let's look at the win con category where we've got 5 cards. Now, the only thing that we have to be careful of is these 5 cards do cost $270 because there's a couple expensive ones. And this is where 2 more of the altars I've done for this deck reside. So the first one is Aetherflux Reservoir. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this card on a CAD Pop Decktech. So let's cover it now. This is a 4 casting cost artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. So your first spell is 1 life. Then your second spell, you gain a life for each other spell you've cast this turn. 1 for this one and 1 for the previous one. So a total of 2. Your third spell, you gain 1 and 1 and 1, so a total of 3. So you continue to, it's like Storm life gain. I don't think that that's how this deck is utilizing this card, because it's not chaining spell after spell after spell. Now, there are a spell or two or a spell with interaction up every round of the table. There are multiple game actions per round of the table that this deck wants to do because it's running protection and interaction and tutors. So every round of the table, this card might gain you 2-3 life total. But wait, there's more. Activated ability of pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So this is a win con. This is pay 50, deal 50. We're the life gain deck. We are routinely going to be above 50. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be uncommon for this deck to gain 8 to 10 life per round of the table. For example, between your turn 5 and your turn 6, you might go from 50 life to 60 life, for example. And if your opponent is at 40, 50 or less, really, probably they're going to be at 40 or less, maybe 30 or less by the time turn 6 rolls around. And if we're at 50, we'll just 50 them and kill them, and we'll still be at 20 some life. And next turn we'll be at 30, and next turn we'll be at 40 or 50 or 60. We'll just gain it all back because that's what the deck is designed to do. All right, the next two, we've got Elesh Norn and End-Raze Forerunner. Both of them sort of work as top of the curve, overrun, token, swarm type cards. So Elesh Norn, 7 mana for 4/7 vigilance. Great blocker. Great if you can give her lifelink and then she can attack and block. Gain life both times. Other creatures we control get +2/+2. Creatures our opponents control get -2/-2. So many uses here. You drop her, you wipe somebody else's token board, we buff ours, we swing in, we got a ton of lifelink, what have you. Great card. End-Raze Forerunner, 8 mana, 7/7, vigilance, trample, haste. So there's that vigilance. It'll attack and block if it has lifelink. That's great. Enters the battlefield. Other creatures you control get +2/+2, gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. It's going to do the same kind of thing as Elesh Norn. It's going to drop. It's going to allow you to swing. You can eliminate one person with End-Raze Forerunner and then still have all your blockers, hopefully a bunch that have lifelink, to block on a crackback or alpha strike from player 3 or 4 or what have you. Gain a bunch of life, Aetherflux player 3 to death, and then attack player 4 to death when it's our turn again. So those 3 cards combine to make ultra potent win con. And then the final 2, these are the altered 2 that I've done. There's a second harvest. Goes green 2 instant. For each token you control, put a token that's a copy of that onto the battlefield. And that's an instant, so you can do it at the end of turn, and you can untap, and those essentially have haste as long as you're leaving 4 mana up. And if you're leaving 4 mana up, let's say for a heroic intervention or a rootborn defenses or something that's going to like make you a little bit wrath proof, if there was no wrath, you can go second harvest at end of player 4's turn and crash in. The final win con in the deck, Triumph of the Hordes. This is a fairly classic token kill. So if you're playing a lot of token decks, or if you're starting to see token decks in your local meta or your VEDH meta, if you will, a lot more frequently, watch out for Triumph of the Hordes. It's a sorcery for green 2 until end of turn. Creatures you control get +1/+1, gain trample and infect. So all of a sudden it's like giving everything on your battlefield +4/+4, because infect only has to hit you for a quarter of what regular damage has to hit you for. So just watch out for that. Block strategically, because those creatures do gain trample, and if you can stave off a bunch of infects, so you get like 8 or 9 counters, your actual life total is not going to go down. And a lot of times in token decks, they're not going to have any more instances of infect. If you can survive that card, you're probably in good shape. If you're casting that card, make sure you do the math on different kinds of blockers and stuff. And of course, make sure you're prioritizing your Eternal Witness and your Balaged Recovery to get back that Triumph of the Hordes, just in case. Just in case somebody blocks strategically, flashes something in, destroys one of your attackers, or if you need to attack player 3 or player 4 to get a win in, again with Infect. Real quick, we'll look at the lands here. I believe we saw 3 modal double face cards, and then we saw that Growing Rites of Itlimoc that flips into a land. Those 4 plus 35 land gives us a total number of land equal to 39. That's lots. We've got some great utility lands in here, but mostly it's fixing. Branch Loft Pathway, another modal double face with land on both sides. Canopy Vista, City Brass Command Tower, Croson Verge, Sungrass Prairie, Sun Petal Grove, Temple Garden, all that, Temple of Plenty. Those are all like the fixing lands. But we do have a Throne of the High City. You sacrifice it to become the Monarch. That's great. Extra card draw on a land. Reliquary Tower, if we do have a huge token and draw, like with Rishkar's Expertise, once we have like a huge Archangel of Thune or something like that, where we can draw like 20 cards, Reliquary Tower would be a good land to drop there. I would like to see a Hall of the Bandit Lord if the budget allows. It's about $20 card, but it does at the cost of 3 life, which we don't care about. It would give the creature that you cast with it haste, which I think would be pretty important, dropping an Elish Norn or dropping like an Archangel of Thune and then gaining a bunch of life or multiple instances of life to have something like that have haste. Again, budget permitting. Looking at the cost of the deck, I'm looking at $744, but that does count Elish Norn. I think it must be counting on Archidect.com. It must be counting the Phyrexian language Elish Norn, which is like $250 or whatever. Elish Norn can be yours for about $20 to $25 if you want just a regular English one. That's great. Andre's Forerunner, great. Again, it's got haste. Either of those could be a Crater Hoof, and you could search for either of those with Tooth and Nail, but if you don't want to run Green Sun Zenith and Tooth and Nail, you could cut the $25 Tooth and Nail, but again, like you could interchange Crater Hoof, Elish Norn, Andre's Forerunners, Decimator of Provinces, another one. You could search for any of those 8 or 9 drops or what have you with your 9 drop cast and put them onto the battlefield, search and put them onto the battlefield, Tooth and Nail, like those all kind of go hand in hand. I'm a big fan of Decimator of Provinces because it is budget. It is something unique. It does have Emerge if you want to sacrifice and then pay the difference. It could be a lot cheaper. So I like all of those things for those reasons. Green Sun Zenith, I'm always a fan of having Dryad Arbor in the same deck. So if you Green Sun Zenith on turn 1, if you just drop a forest, you can go X equals 0, find a Dryad Arbor, put it onto the battlefield, then it turns into a ramp spell as well. And remember, it shuffles itself back into your library, and with the 8 card draw spells and the massive amount of cards we're going to draw with the redundancy of the Elemental Bond, Pack Leader, Uprising, Greater Good, Harmonize, Momentous Fall, Rishkar's Expertise, those are all going to draw us a ton of cards, and I think that we could be fairly confident that we're going to draw that Green Sun again if we used it for ramp early game. Great deck. I love token decks. I don't play them nearly enough. I don't play nearly enough Selesnya. I love life gain decks. I kind of do like Aetherflux Reservoir, even if it results in some non-games, but the argument is that if I'm gaining life and I'm protecting my life total and I'm guarding it, I should be able to Aetherflux as a win con, just like I should be able to Crater Hoof as a win con if I'm playing and prioritizing tokens and what have you. So it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I love the deck. Jesse, thanks for sending it in. Thank you for being a patron. If anybody out there wants to become a patron and have their deck featured, head on over to patreon.com/cadpopcast. Find the reward tier that has the Decktech. Send it in. I really do appreciate the support. There's other benefits, which include Discord access, where we do talk about the deck techs after the fact. And I always learn more. There's always stuff that I miss, and people who listen to the deck techs always get ideas and stuff. So it is like additional little bit of content on the Discord channel. Remember, these are all on YouTube. Go over there, like and subscribe. Let's grow that channel a little bit. There's altered art content there, tutorial videos, and some of the Patreon benefits is having your card, not just your deck, but your altered cards featured on the YouTube channel. So it's kind of all encompassing. If you like the deck, let me know at CADPopcast on Twitter, cadpopcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, give us a like. All the episodes and all the Twitters and social medias are all over the show notes, wherever you get the show. Don't forget, you can head on over to fusiongamingonline.com. They're your source for all of your CADPop deck tech needs. You can go there, look up the cards that I said I liked, look up the suggestions, the lands, the Crater Hoofs, new Commander, Legends, sealed product and singles. It's all available there. If you pick anything up, just let them know at checkout that Ryan from Commander at Populum sent you. It helps the show out a ton, and I do like working with those guys. So if you don't want to support on Patreon, but you're gonna buy cards anyways. Head over there, check out what they got. Great customer service if I ever have any questions about shipping and pre-orders and stuff, and they're always really, really fast. So again, FusionGamingOnline.com. All that being said, everybody, I will see you next Wednesday.